Hey everyone, Crisis here. Today we have a video I've been planning to make for a long time. Stealth games are pretty evidently one of my favorite genres. Sneaking around, being so skilled as to be undetected is just a really satisfying feeling when playing almost any game. And with the likes of Solid Snake and Batman having been looked at before on my channel, I figured I'd take a different approach and assess who among perhaps the 3 most iconic fictional ninjas are the best when it comes to stealth. Assassin's Creed Mirage came out recently, there's that VR game. Arkham Batman's return is upon us, and all 3 of these guys are in Fortnite. The time is now. Just as a citation, I will only be looking at Arkham Batman and any material canon to that timeline. Comic Batman would obviously stalk all 3 of these dudes for their entire lives and they'd never notice. Arkham Batman is a lot more tame than that guy, believe it or not. Again, this is not comic book Batman. The Arkham series is a distinct universe with its own series of events where we can't assume he scales 2 or has the exact same lore as his Prime variant. Also, this isn't a who would win type of video. Assume they are all just as fast and as strong as each other. I'm trying to answer which character is the most capable of going unseen. In order to judge these 3 based on their stealth capabilities, I'm going to be considering a few factors: escaping and hiding, scouting, infiltration, overall ingenuity, and looking at who best uses weapons or their hand-to-hand techniques as far as achieving their goals. Obviously, with these being video games with scripted encounters, none of these guys go 100% unseen, so we have to consider how they approach combat and if they do so with enough efficiency to still ultimately remain undetected most of the time. Starting chronologically, I'll be breaking down the legendary assassin, born in the 1400s to a long line of noblemen, later forged into perhaps the greatest member of the Hidden Ones and most iconic Assassin's Creed protag ever known, Ezio. After finding himself embroiled in an ancient war for knowledge and control, the novice assassin would be formally trained in the ways of knife and sword combat. After garnering more experience across the series, Ezio would go on to be known as the best fighter pretty much in the entire world, mastering the likes of daggers, crossbows, poison darts, bombs, Renaissance-era firearms, and even the close-quarter styles of the time, until he was regarded as a legend within the order. Using these skills, he'd infiltrate many fortresses hosting elite-level guards, usually housing high-level politicians, boasting the utmost influence over the land. Many captains, princes, and even leaders of the Knights Templars were snuck up on and done in by his signature hidden blade. In order to enter these strongholds unseen, Ezio would employ a variety of tactics, either using his mastery over climbing or scaling the sides of walls, coordinating his accomplices while employing disguises, or simply doing this himself, convincing other guards of the Templars that he himself was one. Some Agent 47-ish for real. In the novels, it's been stated that he can practically become invisible, which is best showcased throughout the various times he manages to sneak around while in broad daylight wearing stark white garb. He also boasts great scouting techniques, oftentimes tailing individuals as to overhear intel or even to detect their physical minutiae and discern their fighting styles. He can even manage this against other highly trained Templars, pretty much fodderizing them in every regard, although he has rushed himself and got things straight up wrong as seen in Revelations against Herrick. Much of his skills are a result of his patented eagle vision, a kind of innate sixth sense linked to the bloodline of weird Illuminati aliens. You guys thought Metal Gear's lore was odd. Via this, the assassin can track patterns and trails, recreate events that happened in the past, can tell if someone is alive or not, or if they're an enemy or friend. He can even detect people through walls. However, this sense has been bypassed before by the prior mentioned Templar guards, showing that he's not totally omniscient or anything, and foes skilled enough can still get the drop on him. And of course, one would be remiss to not discuss his agility, greatly aiding in all of his escapes, having to outmaneuver trained guards, even in the cases where he's been spotted after performing an assassination. Here we are, that guy from Fortnite. Oh wait. Solid Snake is a clone of Big Boss, one of the greatest soldiers and secret agents of all time within Metal Gear. Not only is his DNA nearly identical, but it's been stated in official sources that he not only matches the legendary mercenary in prowess, but he's even been called the greatest stealth operative of all time. based on lore surrounding the events of the series mid-2000s. Plus, Snake just beat Big Boss, and Venom Snake, who is pretty much another one of his doppelgangers as far as his capabilities, he was also trained by Big Boss. So with all that said, Snake should be capable of performing or even outperforming any feat or threat faced by Big Boss over his career. So don't freak out when I showcase something Big Boss or Venom Snake did. With this said, Snake is a master of every military weapon and piece of equipment on Earth, including many sci-fi gadgets, with things like optic camouflage existing as early as the 1960s in this universe. This would have some pretty insane implications for Solid Snake's arsenal by the time of the series 2000s to 2010s, where he mainly operated. By the time of Metal Gear Solid 4, Snake boasted the greatest stealth arsenal in perhaps all of gaming. That being his Solid Eye, a kind of high-tech eye patch allowing him to use thermal detecting night vision, binoculars, and enemies' body temperature, emotions, heart rate, and their loadouts, as well as his Octo Camo, a type of body armor doubling as camouflage. When applied against a surface, it takes on the properties of such, allowing Snake to go undetected by Metal Gear geckos, highly advanced drones with an array of sensors, and computing complexities bordering on near sentience. The standard for the series operations disallows the leaving of even sweat and bullet casings during a mission, canonically meaning that these guys just don't leave a trace. The superhuman Quiet boasts statements of such, with claims of her ability to remain totally undetectable. Despite this, Venom Snake was able to sneak up on and defeat her multiple times. Not only does Solid Snake upscale from Venom, but he's also stated to be a greater stealth agent than either Venom or Quiet, based on the series lore. One of his units was Foxhound, the most elite Black Ops agents of all time, all being masters of infiltration, tailing, intel gathering, and technology, map reading, navigation, underwater stealth, and so on, with Snake displaying his expertise in each of these fields at one time or another. To this end, pretty much all of the series protagonists have infiltrated and snuck around highly classified and fortified military bases, filled with elite super soldiers. These dudes regularly sneak around Guantanamo Bay like they're the Grinch stealing Christmas. Secret Soviet weapons factories occupied by the most elite of the elite Russian operatives. Military nations home to the greatest mercenaries on Earth in the 1990s. Nuclear black sites crawling with master-level geniuses amplified by Big Boss at a genetic level, and on and on. Each fortified with security cameras and infrared lasers, and basically a team of evil X-Men, employing combinations of various types of infiltration, such as disguise as seen in MGS3 and the 8-bit games. The rogues in Metal Gear are some of the most iconic in gaming, with many of them boasting pretty much supernatural levels of awareness. The Fear, a soldier making up the greatest warriors during World War II, was a master of ambushes and could turn invisible. Even after getting the drop on Big Boss, he was still outmaneuvered and put down. The End was the greatest sniper ever at that point and was totally connected to the forest battleground and was still snuck up on and beaten. Jungle Evil was a mercenary known for single-handedly wiping out entire squads of soldiers, and Snake 1v1'd. The deadliest of his enemies, however, were the Beauty and Beast Corps, using evolved weapons and techniques of all his prior foes. Laughing Octopus employed her own use of octo camo and smoke grenades, Raging Raven used drones and her aerial vantage point to assess her surroundings, and Crying Wolf used high-tech sensors in an attempt to snipe Snake in the middle of a snowstorm. The greatest soldier in history managed to sneak around and one-up all of them. This is all justified by not only Snake's futuristic arsenal, but also his finely honed and honestly superhuman senses. His threat ring symbolizes such, syncing his intuition with environmental factors such as the mildest of noises, sights, and sounds. His training is so great that he can sense shifts in the air, hear and feel enemies totally invisible to the eye. The Konami and Kojima sanctioned novels take this one step further. Essentially, Snake can enter a sneaking mode, where he totally becomes in tune with the world around him at a micro and macro level. He just becomes one with his surroundings. He can even tune into others skilled in these same methods to detect them. Dude can also just see literal ghosts. Need I say more? Next up, we have the Dark Knight from the Arkham series of games. At a baseline, his Asylum bio lists him as a master of disguise, trained in stealth and espionage tactics, and an expert escape artist. The Arkham City manual states he's an expert hunter. He should be a master of at least most martial arts, clashing with and stalemating Lady Shiva, someone stated to have unmatched fighting skills. And it's safe to say he's at least an expert, if not a perfect practitioner with his weapons, with the ones most aiding his stealth being batarangs of various types, smoke bombs, tranq darts, a disruptor to disable firearms, and even certain types of stealth camo, and on and on. Unfortunately, many of his greatest missions have seen him go up against hardened thugs, such as Joker or Two-Face goons. Not exactly expert or elite guards or watchmen. However, he does have plenty of exceptional performances. In Arkham Origins, he was able to sneak around and detain multiple trained ninja, utilizing his raw senses and rudimentary equipment to secure the victory. He could outperform trained GCP policemen, but it's in the likes of Arkham City and Arkham Knight where Batman would prove what he's made of. Both the Tiger Guards and Arkham Knight's militia were composed of many ex-military personnel. In fact, the former unit was described as the best private security in the world, made up of a combination of ex-military and former SWAT operatives on the Arkham City website. This team was trained specifically to counter the Caped Crusader after much research undertaken by the genius Hugo Strange, and Batman still managed to squad wipe entire rooms of these goons while they used night vision goggles and detective mode jammers. Catwoman herself is noted as having unrivaled stealth capabilities, so she should be more skilled than any one Tiger Guard, and Batman's managed to sneak up on her multiple times in the canonical tie-in comics and Origins Blackgate, which yes, is canon. The Dark Knight has showcased the ability to slip away from these Tiger agents just as easily, either silently, using explosives to cover his exits, and even against the weird mutants like Killer Croc with his enhanced senses. Mr. Freeze's sci-fi tech was also unable to get a pin on him while he snuck around the same room as him. Despite his sending of drones and even scanners seeing his footprints, Batman still avoided his arsenal. When it comes to disguises, both Batman and Robin use them to gain intel in Arkham City, with not even the Joker seeing through his sworn enemy's fake persona. With all that being said, Batman isn't perfect. Many times his foes have gotten the drop on him, such as Hugo Strange knowing where he is, or even Harley Quinn managing to bypass his senses. However, that might not be too inconsistent. He also has much aid in many of these cases, such as Oracle helping him analyze entry points into strongholds or create the documentation for his disguise I mentioned earlier. Left to his own devices, he can go into a situation unprepared, such as ignoring to check the map of the place he's scoping out, for example. Despite this, ninjas, highly trained operatives, high-tech equipment, and meta-human super senses have all been circumvented by the world's greatest detective. Much thanks to his detective vision. Notice that all these dudes have some heightened level of awareness so the player doesn't get snuck up on by anyone and everyone in gameplay. With this tech, he can see fingerprints, hear conversations from far away, apply x-rays, read heat signatures, trace levels of chemicals in the air, firearms, all through walls, and from pretty good distances. All to be expected from one of the best adaptations of this legendary comic book icon. With each of these storied stealth masters detailed, who stands supreme? Ezio on paper has the greatest claim for pulling off some pretty insane feats while not being able to rely on such high-tech equipment compared to the others. And his unique employment of parkour does earn him some points. However, in my opinion, his alien DNA bestowed eagle vision kind of evens it out in terms of his potential. With that being said, going off of his displays alone, without making many assumptions, they really just don't compare. While the Knights Templar and their subsidiaries are highly skilled, they are held back by their era and means of detecting intruders. The other two simply sneak around highly trained guards with superhuman senses or tech, more or less emulating the effects of eagle vision while employing things like drones or futuristic sensors, with the likes of Snake and Batman sneaking around them. It's just a different class. Speaking of the Dark Knight, his greatest displays are very noteworthy, outdoing squads of top-tier agents who have prepped against his techniques specifically, showing great adaptation on the fly. He uses his arsenal well, such as batarangs for scouting and detective vision for everything, and he would have the edge on Ezio for reasons I just mentioned. Tiger Guards are impressive, however they just don't compare to multiple units of legendarily skilled Black Ops soldiers outclassing pretty much every other conventional faction combined. That's how skilled these guys are, with most of them boasting ridiculously overpowered lore. While they both face their respective superhumans and advanced drone opponents, Killer Croc having vaguely defined super senses, pale in comparison to fighters that can read read your energy signatures through walls. Again, just through their raw capabilities alone, no tech aiding them. While Ivy is connected to her plants and Batman's outdone her, he's never done so while completely surrounded by forest life. Nothing in Arkham reaches the level of drones bordering on near sentient awareness. The Octo Camo is also far better equipped for sneaking missions compared to the Batsuit. At best, you can get certain upgrades to be invisible to thermal vision, whereas the Octo Camo just has that standard, as well as many other features. It can pretty much just blend into any environment, and Snake can even wear a mask made of the same material. His solid eye also pretty much provides him just as much information as detective vision. Batman does outshine Snake in certain categories though. For instance, Big Boss's disguise was seen passed by Volgan, someone intimately familiar with the person whom Big Boss was impersonating. Meanwhile, the Joker, another kind of super genius, couldn't tell it was Batman right in front of him. Of course, the context is a little different. I don't think Wayne could impersonate Harley Quinn as effectively, if you know what I mean. Ezio also many times has crowds to take advantage of, while Batman and Snake stick out far more considering their appearances and legendary statuses. Batman cannot disappear into a crowd, and most of the time him and Snake are pretty much like lone operatives just going into wolves' dens. While Snake does have some lackluster showings and has been caught a few times, he always manages to find a way out through his quick thinking and latent talents. All parties here have benefited from assistance, and none of them are perfect, like I said. A lot of the time, the schemes Snake has to endure are so Machiavellian that they operate above his pay grade. But most consistently, he simply evades and counters odds, far outclassing the likes of Batman and Ezio as far as their stealth abilities or their superhuman situational awareness. While the Knights Templar and League of Shadows, for example, are powerful with great reach all things considered, the Patriots that control much of Snake's opposition are literally a series of hyper-aware supercomputers controlling every facet of America, if not the world. In a world of cyborgs, magic psychics, and super soldiers, these things are pulling the strings. Not just some long line of cultist ninjas. They're basically like if the Templar won and merged with Skynet. But to break it down more succinctly, Catwoman has statements of being the sneakiest person in the Arkhamverse, whereas people like Quiet and Metal Gear can just become actually genuinely invisible, inaudible, just undetectable. With Solid Snake performing similar feats through raw skill and scaling above her techniques. He doesn't have superhuman powers like she does in that respect, but still, just through his talent, he is a greater stealth agent, just blatantly stated. Metal Gear had crazy supercomputer-driven AIs and untraceable mutant agents by the time of the series' 1970s and 80s, with Solid Snake having to deal with greater and greater odds as the technology and skills became more advanced with the passage of time in the Metal Gear series. To compare him to Ezio directly, Snake managed to sneak around superior foes often through raw intuition in cases when his tech such as his radars and the likes were of no use to him. For example, in the first 2 games he barely has any high-tech equipment and he's still sneaking into the most advanced military bases with the greatest mercenaries around, mostly being unaware of his being there. And these like god tier level sneaking agents were undone in 1v1s. It's pretty much a trope in the series where you have an obligatory boss fight with a top tier soldier that is just genuinely invisible. Not like the Arkham goons or anything Ezio has to deal with, but just like actually you can't see them. You just can't. And Snake deals with them every time. He was also a top tier assassin as well for a time, with Big Boss also performing various hits or extractions of high ranking politicians or VIPs, scouting the area and getting the job done without any crowds to blend in and out of. Snake pretty much has the training and innate borderline magical abilities as Ezio, combined with the futuristic technology of Batman and beyond. They're each the peak within their respective universes, but overall, I have to give Solid Snake the award for greatest stealth master. His combination of intense military training, metaphysical abilities, consistent besting of numerous foes with heightened awarenesses, and innumerable feats of successful infiltrations, I have to give it to Solid Snake. Also in Fortnite, he's just said to be the best, so and that game features Assassin's Creed characters and comic book Batman, so yeah. With all that said, thanks for watching. Feel free to let me know who you consider the stealthiest game protag. There is of course Sam Fisher, Agent 47, and many others, so tell me who you think is the best in the comments. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.